Beginning with breaking news in President-elect Donald Trump's New York hush money case. Just moments ago, Judge Juan Merchan announced he will delay making a decision on Trump's motion to set aside his guilty verdict and dismiss the case. Merchan was set to announce that decision today. Now he says he won't announce it until next week. Trump's team is arguing to throw out the guilty verdict, citing the Supreme Court ruling earlier this year that gave presidents immunity from prosecution for official acts. Let's bring in MSNBC legal correspondent Lisa Rubin and former federal prosecutor Barrett Berger. And so, Lisa, this just happened. What more are we learning about Judge Merchan's decision to postpone this?
So this is not a decision that Judge Merchan reached on his own. This is rather the parties came to him together and said that Trump's team had asked the district attorney's office whether they would agree to a stay, given constitutional concerns about sentencing a future president and a president-elect, particularly in light of the burdens of an upcoming presidential transition. And that's when the district attorney's office said, yeah, we agree. There are some competing interests here that have to be balanced. On one hand, we want to support the jury verdict. We believe that it was reached correctly. On the other hand, there are some legitimate concerns here dealing with the office of the president. And so we are asking you jointly to stay all deadlines in this case. We will come back to you. And it sounds like he has now said, I am going to stay these deadlines until November 19th. And you have to come back to me by 10 a.m. on November 19th, telling me your view, this is a quote from the order this morning, your view of the appropriate steps going forward. So today, as of today, we are not going to get a decision on whether or not the verdict should stand. And we are not going ahead toward that November 26th sentencing right now. The next deadline in this case is November 19th, when each side has to tell Judge Merchan how they believe we should move forward.
Barrett, are you surprised at all by this delay, especially that the prosecutors are also asking for this delay, given all along that had been a tactic of the Trump team to delay?
I'm not surprised because the landscape really has changed here, right? I mean, the judge has to look at this decision now through two lenses. The legal lens, which he's been prepared to do probably for the last 2 months as he's been writing his opinion. Both sides have briefed this. But now we have this political lens that he has to look through, too, because things have changed pretty drastically after the election. So now, because of the OLC opinion, because of the Supreme Court's opinion, we're in a very different political space where Trump, because he is going to be president, can't be prosecuted. Similarly, there are probably certain sentencing remedies that if Judge Merchan was to decide that these charges should stand and he should go forward with sentencing, certain sentencing options are probably off the table. So my guess is Judge Merchan wants the parties to weigh in and help him as he's reaching this really critical decision.
And even before this latest development, you had said there are a number of different pathways that Judge Merchan could go with this decision in general, right? It's not just dismiss the case or sentence Trump to whatever, right?
Yeah, exactly. So the Supreme Court's decision from the summer gave the president-elect very broad immunity for official acts that he committed as president. But what it didn't do was offer a lot of detail about how to define what an official act is. So this is what sort of the meat that Judge Merchan is really getting into here. But even if he finds that these acts were official acts, that doesn't necessarily mean it leads to dismissal of the case. He may then find, yes, a few of these were official acts because they happened while President Trump was in office. However, they're really ancillary to the ultimate issue in the case. They didn't infect the whole trial, and we can sort of put those aside and still sustain the jury's verdict.
Lisa, I mean, do you see any possibility of the judge actually sentencing Trump 3 weeks here after he, won an election?
I think particularly in light of developments this morning, Anna, where I see this going is perhaps toward a solution where the conviction stands, but there is no sentencing, and both parties agree that either Trump should be sentenced to time served or solely to probation, and that no sentencing hearing is necessary or appropriate. The thing that President Trump's team most wants to avoid is to remind the American public that he was convicted of these 34 felony counts by forcing him to enter the courtroom and sit there as Judge Merchan sentences him. They do not want those optics. They do not want the burden of forcing him to come to New York and go through that. And that's a security risk, I think, for everyone concerned as well. They don't want the inflammation of that proceeding. So Where I think we could land is a place where the conviction stands, but there is no sentence here imposed on former President Trump.
And Lisa, real quick, we also had another ruling just come down before the show related to a separate case, this one involving Mark Meadows in the Georgia election interference case. Fill us in.
So Mark Meadows has been arguing for a long time that as a former federal officer, he is entitled to move that Georgia election interference case to a federal court. He lost that argument in a federal district court and in a federal appeals court. He then went to the United States Supreme Court for a last-ditch effort to try and move that case from Fulton County Superior Court to a federal court. The Supreme Court this morning saying, no, Mark Meadows, we're not going to step in. So if Mark Meadows thinks that the case against him shouldn't go forward, his best hope right now is to look to former President Trump and future President Trump and ask for that pardon.
Of course, the Georgia case is a state case. It's not a federal case. So if Trump takes office and that's still ongoing.
I'm mistaken. And he can't be pardoned for that. So, you know, as I'm
Trump could pardon Mark Meadows,
no,
right?
He couldn't. He couldn't pardon him for a state crime. So I am mistaken in saying that he could ask him for a pardon. As I'm hearing myself talk, there is no pardon that could be granted. Really, the only solution here for Mark Meadows is to win that case on the merits or hope that it gets thrown out, because on appeal, the Georgia Court of Appeals could find that Fani Willis should not stay in control of the case. That's the issue that was already resolved before Judge Scott McAfee of the Fulton County Superior Court earlier this year. Meadows, Trump, and others have now escalated that to an appeals court to say, you know what, Fani Willis, you are too interested. You have too much going on here in terms of your stake with Nathan Wade and the finances to remain in control of your case. If she gets stripped of her control of the case, and it's largely thought that the case would not continue. That's Mark Meadows' best hope.
Do you see the Georgia case continuing if Trump takes office? Again, he can't touch this case. He doesn't have control over, I mean, this is not a DOJ case. He wouldn't have control over the state prosecutors, right? So do you think it moves forward?
Well, it leaves us in this really odd position where the president can't be prosecuted because of his role as the president and this broad immunity that he has. However, other defendants, co-defendants, people that maybe played a lesser role still can be prosecuted. So it leaves us in a bizarre situation where sometimes the person that perhaps was the most culpable is not going to be prosecuted, while others with lesser culpability might. I think that the president may be able to exert some political pressure, even though he can't pardon him. He may be able to pressure state leaders to do some sort of a clemency or some sort of state level.
And of course, we know in the state of Georgia, it is Republicans who are at the top.